Alright, so we're going to be going over the informative speech details for our online class here. So for this speech, you'll be informing the audience on a person, event, concept, object, really whatever you want to be informing the audience on. So with that in mind, you get to select your topic for the speech. It keeps it pretty wide open for you, just so you're speaking on something that you are interested in and care about, but keep in mind the following information when you are selecting your topic. So if you're thinking, you know what, I want to select a political issue, well, maybe we save the political issue for a little bit later on in the semester when we're going to be talking about persuasion. Or if you're thinking, oh, you know what, I want to show the audience how to bake cookies. Well, that's going to come in the demonstration speech. You won't be able to show the audience how to do something with the informative speech. So for informative speeches, you'll focus on helping the audience gain new knowledge and insights on your topic rather than trying to persuade them of something. Again, that probably goes back to, you know what, if I'm going to talk about a certain issue, I have to talk about both sides, and then I'm not able to convince the audience or try to persuade the audience that one side is better than the other. With this in mind, you're going to formulate a thesis statement without using any persuasive language such as need, should, must, best, worst, most, or least. So when you're thinking, you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to formulate a thesis that is objective and doesn't have this persuasive language? Well, your thesis statement inherently probably won't be objective just because a lot of the things we say honestly tend to be a little subjective. So even if I wanted to give a speech on say Ronald Reagan, and maybe my thesis statement was Ronald Reagan was an influential figure in American history. That is not necessarily persuasive, but that is subjective because I said he was influential. Not everyone might agree with that statement, so there is that subjectivity there, but that's okay because we're going to have a really tough time just being strictly objective. During your speech, you'll be objective, just talking about kind of his life and why he was influential, but you're not trying to tell the audience they should act upon or should do anything when it comes to it. So let's see, for this speech, this will be the first speech of the semester that you're going to have to do any outside research to support your points, and we'll have a voiceover tutorial on how to do that as well. Here are the speech details below. So it's going to be 3 to 6 minutes. That gives you kind of a broad range because for some of your topics, they might not need to take the whole 6 minutes. For other topics, honestly, you'll probably need all 6 minutes to talk about them. So 3 to 6 minutes. You're going to have a type formal outline using the sample that we create in class. Again, this will be another tutorial that we'll do in class. And then you are going to have 2 to 3 main points for this speech. If you're going to have more than that, I would say maybe 4. If there's going to be more than 4, you're going to have to get approval from me just because then it gets to be a little long. I think you could probably condense them a little bit. So the next point would be you're going to have 2 subpoints for each main point. Again, if you're going to have more than that, I would just keep it maybe at 3, but again, that just gets a little too long. It's like I would just try to condense it into 2 subpoints. You're going to have an intro, body, conclusion, just like the last speech. You're going to have 3 outside sources. This is where you're going to do that research, that outside research. You're going to orally cite these during your speech, as well as have a bibliography, reference page, works cited, whatever you want to call it, of the 3 or more sources that you use, and you're going to use APA. Your best bet when finding research is going to be using IWCC's library portal if you want some of those scholarly journals. If you're looking for maybe more so news stories, then maybe that's going to fall under just a quick Google search. But if you're going to use Google, that's fine. Just keep in mind that you're supposed to be using credible sources or as non-biased as possible. You're probably not going to be using a lot of stuff. I guess you shouldn't be using opinion pieces from certain news organizations. I'll say this. So if you're trying to give an informative speech on a topic, and the only thing you're citing is either Fox News strictly or you're only strictly citing MSNBC, there's probably some bias in those sources. So just keep that in mind when you are citing stuff. So you're going to have 5 note cards total. You can have 2 outline note cards. So kind of just writing out your outline on there step by step. And then you're going to have 3 evidence note cards for your sources. If you have more than 3 sources, you can have more than 3 evidence note cards. So on your speech due date, you must complete the following by noon. You have to submit your outline with 1 sentence per point. Like I said, please use a sample outline from class. Then you're going to have to submit a reference page and works cited, which should be on the same document of your outline. And then obviously you have to submit the speech on your own discussion post by posting your YouTube URL for us. So if we look at the rubric here, this one is a little bit more in depth. This speech is going to be worth 100 points. So we have an attention getter, 5, 3, 0. I don't just give strictly 5, 3, or 0. I'll give probably a 4 or a 2 in here as well. This is kind of just our standard format for this. We also have, we're looking at a credibility statement. So this is something that's going to be added during this speech, a credibility statement. And I'll just make note of that up here, which I did. Yep, you'll have a credibility statement in your introduction. Purpose statement / state main points, so your thesis as well as your preview. And then there's this idea. We haven't talked about this necessarily having it in your introduction yet, but you will have a motivation to listen or audience engagement. So for this speech, since we haven't touched on it quite yet, you excuse me, you won't have to have necessarily a statement in your introduction. If you want to, that would be a great time to kind of take care of this spot. But I'm going to be looking at your audience engagement throughout. So once we get to the outlining, I'll show you where you can put that in your introduction, and then that would be a great opportunity to engage the audience and give them some motivation to listen. Moving into the body, you're going to be judged on your main points. We're going to look at your transitions, your utilization of examples and stories. What this is going to look like is how you expand on your evidence pieces that you use. Because you will be graded on your oral documentation of sources. After you state those sources, you shouldn't just leave it at that. You should explain why they relate back to your concept, maybe give a story about them, maybe give a little bit more of an in-depth example. So that's what this is going to look like here. And then in your conclusion, you're going to be judged on restating your main points, your thesis statement, as well as your closing statement. For this speech, we have a little bit more on delivery. So we have enthusiasm and energy. We're looking at your voice, which is your volume, your rate, your speech tone, your enunciation. You're also going to be graded on your vocal clutter, as well as eye contact. We also have body gestures, extemporaneous delivery. For this, it says visual aid is required. We haven't talked about it yet, so a visual aid is not required. I repeat, not required. You can have one, but a visual aid, we're going to start introducing those in our demonstration speech. So don't feel like you need to have a visual aid for this speech. Your time limit, here, I mean, pretty straightforward, 3 to 6 minutes. Outline and note cards, and then references page. So 10% of your grade is going to be just basically turning in your stuff with the correct format. And then let's see, going through. So I should just break this down. So if you don't have a visual aid, I'm just going to give you a 5 there. If you do have a visual aid, I'm probably going to give you a 5 unless it's really distracting. So this should be an easy 5 points right here. Going through, we got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 30% is going to be your delivery. So let's see, the last 60% is going to be the actual content in your speech and your ability to deliver that content. All right, so if you have any questions on that, let me know. It's out of 100 points, like I said. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'll be posting an outline tutorial as well as a research tutorial. So don't stress about those. We'll get to those at another point. So thanks, and we'll see you guys next time.